Hello, everybody. This show has been created to inspire you to take action.
All about celebrating and reframing what success looks like.
To be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
And we have incredible speakers for you tonight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Future Females Show. I'm Susana Kennedy, and this is one of the first episodes of season 2, which I'm super excited about. And today I have someone super cool. He is an author, high performance coach, and so much more. His name is Erik Kruger, and he is from this lovely Cape Town of ours, which is fantastic. And he is a high performance coach that deals specifically with teams. He has founded a company called Modern Breed, and he is the CEO and founder of that company that works with different small businesses and corporates to help their teams really, I started listening to a podcast, but really trust each other and work together in a more beautiful, succinct way, as I understand it. But let me not take words out of his mouth. Let's welcome Erik into the room. Erik, how are you doing today?
Hey, Susana. No, thank you so much. You nailed that intro, so thank you for that. It's good to be with you.
Fantastic. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about high performance coaching and what led you to working with teams? Why specifically teams?
So I started coaching maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. And when I started off, it was mainly working with sort of exec level individuals. And I think over time, I just started migrating more towards teams because I enjoy the coaching aspect of it, of being in the room. Like I love the energy of being in the room with a team, and we all brainstorming together and we're all thinking about solutions and problem solving. And then also teams are how we have the biggest impacts in organizations. The world we find ourselves in is extremely complex and complicated. And the only way we get to deal with that complexity is through having teams that function effectively. So I think over time, it's more just kind of following my own enjoyment. I think that's kind of what led me to where I am.
I love that you're saying that, because one of the things that I really live by is follow your bliss. If you truly start following your bliss, it takes you on a path that ends up being your true life's path. I really do believe that with my whole heart. So I love that you said that. And I also love that you're speaking about the importance of teams. One of the things that can, I believe, make or break an organization is dysfunctional teams, when you've got teams that are not happy. And sometimes there are teams that function, but they're not thriving. And it makes such a difference when you've actually got a team together that thrives. And one of the big things that you bring up in some of your podcasts is the trust element. Can you maybe just touch on that for a moment?
Yeah, just to step back for one moment. When I got into working with big corporates, I thought they had it all figured out, because it always seems to me that just you've been in business for ages, you have all the resources available to you in the world, so you should have it figured out. And when I started getting into it, I realized no one has it figured out, that leadership is a very difficult thing, that leading a team is a very difficult thing, managing other humans is a very difficult thing. And we often just wing it. We put a bunch of people together and we think magic is going to happen on the other side of it. And it just doesn't work that way. We need to be a lot more intentional with how we design our teams, how we create the operating system of the team, so that the output is the desired output, so that the team accomplishes the mission of the team. And then what's happened over the past few years, we've realized that one of the foundations of being a good and effective team is that there has to be psychological safety in the team. It kind of started with, there were actually like an initial group of researchers that led the study around psychological safety. Then Amy Edmondson was sort of the kind of the voice for it. She didn't pioneer it, but she gave it credibility, she gave it reach. And then a few years later, Project Aristotle came out, which was Google's project, where they wanted to see what makes a good team in Google. And what they found over and over again was this idea of psychological safety, which is that we have to create an environment for our team where people feel that they can be open, where they feel included, and where they feel that they can raise their opinion, their voice without being ostracized from the team. Because that's one of the biggest drivers for us as human beings, is that we want to be a part of the group. And nothing scares us more than being evicted from that group. And so I think that's become such an important aspect of team building, is that we can't talk about communication and feedback and accountability and leadership and all these things that are needed in a team if we don't have a foundation of psychological safety and trust.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on two things there that I think are so important and relevant to speak about here. And that's so many people, they're petrified of not being included, of being, ousted. We are, after all, we're pack animals. The sense of belonging is essential to us, but so is the sense of relevance, that I actually matter and that I mean something within this organization, within this group, within this family, right? We want to feel relevant, like what we are doing actually is important, is of value, is adding to. What are possibly like 3 little tips that any entrepreneur that has an organization, because everybody's got teams, right? 3 little tips that you could give anyone to just implement that would possibly start creating more of that feeling of safety within your organization and possibly relevance as well?
Yeah, first and foremost is to have a shared mental model of what psychological safety is. Because this is the very typical thing, is that we all have, you say trust, for example, like everyone has a different idea of what does trust look like for them in their teams. What does it mean? So step 1 for me is always, let's create a shared mental model of when we say psychological safety or trust or relevance, what does that mean? What does that look like? And you'll know from coaching, that's always kind of the first step, right? What does it look like? What does it mean? We want to be as clear as possible. Once we've established that, the second thing is that we want to create the environment in which any behavior can thrive. And so we have to ask ourselves, what does that look like? And it's obviously just a set of behaviors. But what I've seen time and time again is that if how we create the culture or the environment isn't conducive to behavior, it always squashes that behavior. And there's that one quote that goes, a bad system will always beat a good person, right? But the same goes for behaviors. So you want to create a system where that behavior can thrive. And this just means thinking about when someone does show up in a certain way, how do we react towards that? So we say we want everyone to raise their opinion and, disagree with us. But when that happens, we don't want to ostracize them or downplay their contribution. So what does our reaction look like? And then the third step is then, okay, well, now we need to start practicing this. So what does it look like to practice psychological safety? Well, next time we have a meeting, we're going to have a 5-minute session at the end, and we're going to go, okay, bring out your most controversial issues. We are prompting that behavior. We're not just leaving it to chance. So the 3 steps is shared mental model, create the environment, and practice, create a space to practice the new behavior.
I think that's also so relevant and so important is so many people don't take the time to actually think about and future project, right? Future project possibilities and outcomes and scenarios. And if you do, then when you go into a space, you actually have the confidence to hold that space in a completely different way. So I really love that. We're talking about safety here, and I know that one of your books, your latest book, is called Dangerous. And apparently it's being received really, really well. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, so it came out last year in March, and it's a book that I sat with for probably about 3 years. And the meaning behind the book and the idea in the book has been quite transformational for me. So I'll take you back to where the book started, because I think that is the best explanation of what the book is about. I was in a coaching session, and this was very early on in my coaching career. And I was speaking to the CEO who was doing extremely well in all aspects of life. Like there was nothing about this guy that you could pity. He was CEO, he was like earning well, his family loved him, his team loved him, he was in good condition. But when we were on the call, it became quite clear to me that even though things were going well for him, sort of in the material external world, mentally, he was kind of stuck in survival mode. And I mean, if people are in survival mode, you typically see three things. You see that they are reactive to everything that's happening around them. They are always just trying to get through the day, just putting out fires. They're not really thinking about tomorrow. They're always operating from anxiety, frustration, and fear, which then creates two more distortions, which is the distortion of severity and the distortion of probability. So probability says things are likely to go wrong. Severity says that when they go wrong, it's going to be catastrophic. And so when we go to bed at night, of course, we're always thinking about this challenge in front of us. We think, oh, it's likely to go wrong. When it go wrong, it's going to be catastrophic. And so that creates more anxiety, more fear, more frustration. Wake up in the morning the next day, we reactive again. And so the third thing that happens in survival mode is we get stuck in this loop that the things we do in survival mode keep us in survival mode. And so much of this was clear to me for him, that he was stuck in survival mode, but I wasn't quite sure what led him to survival mode. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I tried to describe what I was seeing. Like when I looked at him, what was I seeing? And then one day it just hit me that when I was looking at him, it felt to me like he'd become harmless. Like there was just nothing left in him. I was like, where's the guy that I used to know? The formidable, confident, assertive, go-getter type guy. The guy that was taking risks, that was moving forward, that was growing. I'm not seeing any of that. And so I felt harmless was the best descriptor of what I was seeing in front of me. And of course, no one wants to be called harmless. But I went on the call with him and I said, listen, if I have to be honest with you, we know you're in survival mode, but more than that, if I had to describe what I'm seeing, I feel like you are being harmless. And he took that in for a second and he said, yeah, actually, I feel it. I feel like I'm being harmless in my life. And we spoke about it. We unpacked it for about an hour. And right towards the end, I said to him, if you are not going to be harmless, then what will you be? And he said, dangerous. And the moment he said that, there was something that shifted for me. I was like, yeah, I also feel like I want to be a bit more dangerous, a bit more formidable, a bit more in control of my life, a bit more like the kind of person that takes risks. And so in that moment, there was just something, around that word that ignited a fire for me in my chest. And that became the start of this journey that was really about exploring what does it mean to be dangerous. And we actually use this word quite often, like the Springboks run onto the rugby field, we say they're dangerous. What do we mean? We say they have a certain level of skill and ability that allows them to overcome the competitor. We look at certain businesses. We say, we have to watch out for them because they're dangerous. What does it mean? It means they have a way of looking at a certain product, or they are bringing a certain innovation to the market, or they market in a specific way that might interfere with the way that you want to do things. They become a very strong competitor. And so dangerous at the end of the day, where we've come to is that it's a pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting that empowers you to overcome the threats in your life. And we all have threats. So I'll leave it at that because I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, I mean, it's so interesting listening to you talking because I don't know if it's a masculine and feminine thing, but when I hear harmless, I don't want to harm anyone, and when I hear dangerous, I'd be dangerous, but I do want to be impactful and I do want to innovate and I do want to affect change. And so it's just interesting, the wordplay and how possibly different people perceive it. And when you explain it like that, it makes complete sense for me. And it sits very much in kind of the masculine realm for me. Do you know what I mean? And in business as a woman, I often have to draw on my masculine energy, right? So it's great. It's really interesting to reframe that word in a different way. That can be actually a positive and not a scary thing, So I think it's super cool. So how has this journey of writing books impacted you in terms of your career as a coach? How has that helped you within your career as a coach? Has it made a big impact?
Yeah, I think it's made impact in a few different ways. The first is that, when you write a book, you spend so much time thinking about your content. And so I think we often write about the things that we need in our lives. The writing is the tool and the mechanism for you to also overcome whatever challenge you are facing. So it's quite cathartic in that way, quite therapeutic in that way. And also the impact that you get to have with that is obviously really important. a book is a great mechanism for distributing content still. But then from a career point of view, I'm trying to think if it's been that big of a needle mover. And apart from being able to say I'm a bestseller, which might have some impact, when clients are looking to book me or to work with me, I don't feel like it's necessarily made a big dent in the way that I've gone about my career. It's just been another part of the puzzle. And that's how I look at everything that I'm doing, is that it's always just about accumulating more and more wins. And I don't get too hung up on any one specific win. Writing a book, part of the process. Recording a podcast, part of the process. Putting a LinkedIn post out, part of the process. And so to me, yeah, books, part of the process.
So that, I really love that you're saying that, and it brings up so much for me, because for the last, I don't know how many years, 8 years, everybody's like, Susana, you need to write a book, you need to write your book, you need to write your book. And I actually have started my book. I have not finished my book. And everybody within this industry, not everybody, that's always an exaggeration, you can't say that, but a lot of people within this industry have said to me that writing the book really changes the game for coaches, because once you're a published author, you're talking about wins, once you're a published author, that does put you in a different category. Being a best-selling published author, that as well puts you in a different category. So it's something that I kind of am hoping this year I will finally complete. It is on my to-do list for the years to actually finish that book. But do you recommend that to other coaches, to other people wanting to become coaches, writing a book? Or is that something that you feel needs to be just a deep calling from an individual to produce something which is manifested in a book form?
Look, I think it all depends on the goals that you have as a coach, or as a professional for that matter. I'm friends with tons of authors. I have an entire, in my bookshelf, I have an entire shelf just dedicated to all my friends that have written books. John Sonne, Richard Mulholland, Helen Nicholson, Nick Haralambous, Andy Golding, Gilan Gork, they're all sitting on my bookshelf over there. And if I look at them, and I don't want to speak for them, but the ones that I do know quite well, and I know the impact that the books have had for them, it's just a tool. It's just the fact that I get to go on stage and I can say that here's my thinking manifested as a physical thing. The book never moves the needle because you're not selling enough books in SA to make an impact. So it's really just the fact that I have this new content delivery mechanism that I can use, and you can access it, in book form. That's actually all it is, to be honest. I don't know if I'd recommend it as a go-to starting point. I think everyone should write a book because it's a great process to go through. But don't hinge your success on the fact that you're going to write a book and it's going to be a runaway bestseller and it's going to change your life. It won't. For that, I'd rather say get a podcast or a video, not even a podcast actually, because podcast discoverability is quite bad. Maybe go with video or social media, but start somewhere else until you feel like you really have something to say, and then write a book. And then don't don't write a long book, write a short book, because just get your message across. Don't try and waffle for 300 pages just for the sake of it.
Okay. Nice advice. I like it. Cheeky question. Have you read all of your friends' books that are sitting on your bookshelf?
Definitely not.
I love that you were honest about that. Okay, on the cheeky questions, one of the things that I am very pro is celebrating ourselves. I think as human beings, we definitely do not celebrate ourselves enough, women specifically, and because I think that, this is obviously aimed at female entrepreneurs, although we do have men that watch our show as well. What are some of your wins? What are some of the things that you are most proud of along your journey that you can share with us?
Before I answer that, can I just tell you, so my wife and I decided this year that we want to celebrate more wins. And so what we did, I think I saw it on TikTok, is we went out and we bought a whole bunch of champagne bottles. And then on the champagne bottles, we wrote down all the goals we have for the year. And so every time you hit a goal, you get to subrage a champagne bottle.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's so great. Have you got a sword, or are you doing it with a butter knife, or have you?
I'm using my wedding knife. I got a custom knife made, but we actually want to get a sword, so we need to go look for that.
I have subraged with a teaspoon before. Like you can literally do it with anything. It's really fun though. Like every time you pop it, it doesn't matter. But I once was given a sword and was this big like heavy sword. I was like, oh my gosh, this is heavier than the bottle of bubbly. I managed, thank goodness. But that's a great one. I really like that. I think that I'm going to have to grab a box of bubbly and definitely take that on as my thing as well. So let's celebrate some of your wins. What are they? Share them with us, Erik.
Sure. There's been lots recently, actually. We have a podcast called The Expansive, and last year we were in the top 5% most shared globally, which was really cool to see.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. This year has been an interesting year because, as we were discussing a bit earlier, I loved hearing your story, by the way, because I resonated with it quite a bit, that we get pushed in certain directions, and if we listen, it's interesting where we end up. And so I started Better Man. Better Man kind of put me on stage, got me into coaching. I went to my master's. It led me to the corporate world. I started focusing on coaching, then more into speaking. And today, where I'm at, I'm doing more work with teams in a workshop and sort of learning journey capacity. So designing longer learning journeys for teams and organizations. And it's always incredible to me how, like, when your focus shifts and you really start paying attention to something, how that manifests itself. And so earlier in the year, I made the decision to really start cutting out almost all my individual coaching, even team coaching, and just focusing on learning journeys and workshops. And I've had the most incredible clients come through this year that is like sort of early on supporting me in this new direction that I'm working on.
There's a beautiful saying, where focus goes, energy flows. It's one of the laws of the universe, right? And what you're speaking about right now is exactly that. And I think it's one of the pieces of advice that I give people is when they're lost and they don't know what to do, just focus on one thing. Even if it's not the right thing, it will start your journey and you will start being guided in the right direction. But at least energy will start flowing somewhere and you'll start on a journey instead of feeling like you're stuck. So I love that you have identified that so beautifully on your journey. So what has been like a super highlight for you? Like one of the biggest highlights?
It was definitely great seeing my book on the bestseller list. And the reason is because it's actually my second book. The first book that I wrote was called Acta Non Verba. And where that came from is I wrote a daily email that went out to men for about 2 years. I wrote about 900 of these emails. So not 2 years, 3 years. And we then took the 170 best ones, we put them into a book called Acta Non Verba, Actions Not Words. And it was very funny. Like the moment that book hit the shelves, I was kind of a bit of ashamed about it for some reason. I felt like I cheated the author process of sitting down and struggling with your work. And so I didn't actually push it. It came out, it was on shelves. I was happy for a little while, and then I didn't really want to sell it. And so I ended up with boxes and boxes of those books still like lying in my study, like years later. And then when Dangerous came out, it was a topic that was deeply personal to me, that I really believe in. And to have pushed that and to see that land on the bestseller list for a few weeks actually was a great moment for me. Not only because of the book, but just because of the process of like, okay, that first one was a complete failure because you never loved it. You never put effort into it. And then the second one, from the day I started writing it, I said, it's going to be a bestseller. When I hired my PR agency, I was like, we are making this a bestseller. And so everything was just geared towards that, and seeing it come to life. Amazing.
Amazing. Congratulations. Erik, thank you so much for your time. It's been so great chatting to you. Where can people find you? What is the best way of people following you, getting in touch?
Google Erik Kruger and you'll find like all the different touch points.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And yeah, I wish you all the best on your journey. We definitely need better teams, you know, in this world, but also male coaches. You know, I was speaking about this to somebody yesterday, and the divine masculine is something that truly needs to be nurtured in this world, and I believe that. And yes, I'm a feminist, but that doesn't mean I don't like men. In fact, the opposite. I really love men, and I really appreciate what they bring to this world, and I'm so happy and excited by the shift in the consciousness around men really embracing personal development in a different way, because I think that, you know, females, it comes naturally to us. Do you know what I mean? We lean on each other quite naturally, but for men, it's taken quite a lot for a lot of men to reach out and go, actually, I need some support. I would like to get a coach. I would like to see a psychologist. You know, I would like to do these things to better myself, because, you know, there was so much stigma around it, you know, in previous days. And so I love seeing great men, male coaches stepping in, you know, and just supporting this, what I call the divine masculine, coming into full fruition. Because if we've got the divine feminine and we've got the divine masculine, then oh my gosh, can you imagine what we can do on this planet, you know? So I really honor you for all of your work, and I thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet at some point in person.
It was great hanging out with you. Thank you so much. You were a great interviewer.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, what is the best question you've ever been asked in an interview?
The best question I've been asked. Well, I can actually tell you the toughest question I've been asked, which is not actually supposed to be all that tough, but it was around my relationship with money. And yeah, there was quite a bit of unpacking that needed to happen there. So
what did they ask? What did they ask? They say, what is your relationship with money?
Yeah, it was that. And then kind of digging into, well, how did you grow up and how did that inform your relationship with money? And money is a weird topic that we often have lots of baggage and hangups around. And I think I've dealt with that quite a bit in the past few years, changing my relationship with money. I've never had a bad relationship with it, maybe just a limited relationship. And yeah, and having to kind of unpack that was very interesting for me.
Nice. Maybe we should have a conversation around that, because I've also transformed my relationship around money. And I'm in that, but sure, big difference. Yeah, for sure. Okay, Erik, I better run. Thank you. To everybody watching at home, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Future Female Show. I'm Susana Kennedy. Have a beautiful day. Bye.